Let's start by, I've got that open already, darn it. Let's start by finishing the chapter 5 slides. I don't think I have very much left. We'll go over the homework and then we'll turn our attention to the 940s. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Do you need both of them or just one? Yeah, right. So I believe we left off right here. Okay, this is my last memory. Okay, experience rating results in determining an employer's, or every employer is given an experience rating, which is a fancy word for what? Well, yeah, but it's actually a fancy word for your pseudo rate. Your experience rating is, 3.12, that's your pseudo rate. If I'm a negative balance employer and she's a positive balance employer, we're both in commercial real estate, who's going to have the better rate? The one who's the positive balance employer, okay? What does that mean, Tyler? What does it mean to have a positive balance employer? It's okay. You can hear Chase. Yeah. I've contributed more to the fund than what? Well, who takes out of the fund? Yeah, I've contributed more to the fund than people have claimed that have become unemployed under my watch. Okay? A negative balance employer is the opposite of that. I've contributed X, and the people that have claimed unemployment for my company have taken out Y, and Y is bigger. Okay? I've put in $3,000 worth of taxes, and the fund paid out $20,000 in unemployment count. I'm a negative balance employer, and I would expect that my experience rating would go up, clearly.
Do you think that could create a toxic work environment, or you just don't want to go?
Oh, there's lots of dysfunctionality around this. The question was, does that create some toxicity in the workplace? And the answer is, yes. Okay, so your experience rating reflects the stability, obviously, of your employment history. If you just have a ton of turnover because you're, I don't know, what's it, like fast food industry, right? By nature, that's going to just have higher pseudo rates because it's a fast turnover kind of industry. Okay, we've talked about all this, positive balance and negative balance employers. And also, just so that you're aware, there's also other terms for that. Positive balance employers can also be called surplus employers. The word surplus meaning has some extra. Negative balance employers can also be called deficit employers. So you guys know what those words mean. Okay, in some states, for example, Montana, if you want to make voluntary contributions in addition to just your regular pseudo rate, it can pop you into a different reserve ratio calculation bracket. You don't need to know those words, but yay. But it can put you into a different actuarial bracket, and then your rate may drop in the future. So what am I saying? I've got a 3.8% rate, and I pay $500,000 in payroll, taxable wage payroll. Okay, so that's a chunk of change out of my pocket every year. If I make another $2,000 of pseudo voluntary contributions in addition to my rate, I can push myself down to a lower bracket and only need to pay 3.2% next year. Obviously, that's just a mathematical calculation. Okay. For most people, they're like, voluntary contributions? Why would I do that? Well, to buy down your rate, so to speak, in the future. You're not going to be responsible for making those calculations. They're fairly complex. Okay, nonprofits have the option to reimburse for the actual amount of unemployment claims. I think I told you my husband's the CFO for the Youth Homes, which is a nonprofit. They have 12 youth homes around Western Montana. kids go when they're taken out of their home. And they choose not to pay SUTA tax. Instead, they choose to directly compensate anybody that has a viable unemployment compensation claim. So if you work for the youth homes and you have a viable unemployment compensation claim, you're not going to go through the, you're still going to go through the state, but it's actually they're really directly paying you. Why would they do that? Well, okay, sure. So you can track maybe a little bit more carefully who's claiming. It's really a financial decision. If I know I've got really good HR policies and I have very low turnover, and I'm just gonna, I would rather self-insure for SUTA. Does that make sense? It's the same thing like once you own your car, right? You don't have to make payments anymore. You have the choice now whether you want comprehensive insurance or not. Do I want to still pay somebody else to take care of it? Or do I want to just say, I'm going to self-insure? In other words, if my car gets stolen, I'll pay for it. Okay, Dumping Prevention Act. Basically, this is when companies, this is all a little bit complex, but will form subsidiaries. So say that you've really gotten yourself in a mess, like you've had a ton of turnover, really bad HR policies, and your rate's 6.1%, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't sustain this. You create a subsidiary, move your whole business in there to start over as a new employer with a new rate. Okay, that's just circumventing the rules, and now there's laws to preclude that. Okay, so let's just take a look at this. This is a company. They're based in New Mexico. They have a SUTA tax rate of 4.2%, and their taxable wage base is $24,300. And in the last year, Sumatra had FUTA taxable wages of $109.5 and SUTA taxable wages of $298.7. Compute the amount of net FUTA tax and net SUTA tax, assuming they're not located in a state with a reduced credit. So first off, why are the FUTA and the SUTA taxable wage bases different? Is that confusing to you, or can you explain that? So what is a taxable wage base? What's your taxable wage base for OASDI? Yeah, 128.7. 128.7. What's your taxable wage base for FUTA? 7. With New Mexico, what's your taxable SUTA wage base? 24.3. So it makes complete logical sense that you're going to stop paying on people at a lower number for FUTA than you are for SUTA, right? Yeah. And then the only other thing that should be, and then you just multiply the wage basis times the percentages. The only other thing here that I want to make sure you know, what does that mean? New Mexico is not a state with a reduced credit. Let's just do a little reinforcement there.
Reduced credit is when you're in good standing.
They don't
Drop it, destroy it.
It's not a good standing thing.
They don't have that 5.4%, they have a little percent.
Okay, so does everybody remember that? How does FUTA work? 6.0% what? Gross or net? 6.0% gross minus 5.4% what? SUTA credit gives you a 0.6% net FUTA rate. And forever that was on, I never even knew any difference. Then there was a rash of Title 12 defaults. Can somebody explain that super quick?
It's when you pitch.
Because everybody will borrow money from
Yep. Government.
the government
And,
to compensate for unemployment.
yeah,
Like you are able to pay and then now get 0.3% and
very good. Super, super close. Just about that one little detail. So that 6.0 minus 5.4 equals 0.6 always holds true except for two situations. One situation is super easy to understand, that's if you've made your SUTA payments late. Okay? The second situation is if you are an employer in a state that's in Title 12 default. And we know that right now there's only one state left from the '08 Great Recession that's still in Title 12 default, and that's California. That means that every year they don't pay back the money that they borrowed from the federal government to pay unemployment compensation benefits in their own state. There's a 0.3% reduction in that SUTA credit. So it goes from 5.4 to 5.1. Therefore, FUTA goes up to 0.9. Right? We did all that on the board. Okay.
Wouldn't it just make it harder and harder to pay back instead of keep paying more and more?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't it just make it harder for that state to pay back? Because if they can't pay back 0.6 every year, it keeps hiking.
They're not paying back the 0.6. The employer in the state is now paying more FUTA every year. So the state itself is liable directly to the Fed to funnel the money back they borrowed. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 940 and then we'll segue into that. So a 940 is an annual form compared to a 941, which is a what? Quarterly form. And tell me when the 941s are due again? When's the first one due? Oh, yeah, from the last year. Yeah, but for say we're in 2019 right now, when was the first quarter 2019 due? April 30th. The second one was due July 31st, and the third one's due tomorrow, and the last one's due Jan 31. The 940 is also due Jan 41. Your W-2s and W-3 and 1099s and 1096 all due Jan 31. January is an extremely busy month for people that are involved in year-end payroll processing. Okay, it's just that 2-page 940 that I had you print out for today, unless you have to attach a Schedule A. The only reason you would have to attach a Schedule A is if you're a multi-state employer. So I have employees in Wyoming, North Dakota, and Montana, or you're in that SUTA credit reduction state, i.e., I'm a California employer. Those are the only two reasons. Otherwise, you wouldn't do a Schedule A. You're not going to be responsible to do Schedule A's for the exams. Okay. You can get an extension, which I don't know why you would do that unless your books were kind of in a mess. If you've messed it up and you need to correct it, you can file an amended 940. A lot of people aren't aware that you can do that with anything. Your tax return, your W-2s, your 940, your 941, you can always correct them or amend them. And even like say that I just closed my business on January 15th of this year, I still have to file a 940 and mark the little box that says final return. Otherwise, they're going to hound you forever. Where's your 941? Where's your 940? I'm done doing business. So you have to file that and say final return. Okay, this just kind of takes you through all the different parts. I think it's way easier to do it than talk about it. My son was just telling me he just got a new job in media, and he was saying that he had to watch all these training videos. And he said it was the equivalent. I go, how were they? And he goes, it's the equivalent of teaching you how to play baseball, but you don't get to pick up a bat. You don't really know how big the ball is. And it's like, just sitting looking. I mean, that's what I feel like about these things. Like, sitting looking at it is purposeless until we can practice it. Okay, some rules about FUTA depositing. So let's just go back and make sure that we can tie all this in. So with the 941, let's just go through in our heads. We just talked about the due dates for the actual return, right? Now, the other piece of that is, when are the deposits due for 941s? It depends. It depends on what? It depends if the IRS has classified you as semi-weekly or monthly. Except for if you're really big or really small. If you're really big and you owe more than $100,000, you have to do what? Next day. If you're really small and you don't even get to $2,500 a quarter of FICA FIT, It's not annual, you have to deposit it with what? When you actually fill out the tax return, the 941. So you have to know those rules. That's an example of, I will hammer that on the final. You absolutely have to know the deposit rules. 940, very different. It's only due once a year, the actual return. And you have to, the rule is, you have to deposit quarterly, but only when you get to 500 bucks. So if I'm some small little business and at the end of the year I owe $126.93, I'm just gonna pay it with the 940 itself. But if I'm, Montana Rail Links, and I run $1 million payroll twice a month, I'm gonna have to deposit every quarter. And if I'm somewhere in between, like first quarter I owe 300 bucks, I'll have to deposit. Second quarter I owe another 300 bucks. Now do I have to deposit? Sure, because I've gotten over the 5 cumulatively. Did you catch the example? So it's a cumulative number. Whenever you hit 500 in total that you owe, then you've got to deposit. The 940 deposit dates are exactly the same as when the 941s are due. In other words, the end of the month following the close of the quarter. And I know it must feel sitting out there like, oh my God, there's so many freaking dates. But when you're in payroll processing, everything happens at the end of the month following the close of the quarter. Except for you have these pretty special deposit rules for 941. That's different between companies. Otherwise, it's pretty much on a cycle. You've got to deposit your federal taxes electronically. Anybody remember the name of the system we use? It's 5 letters. Not even close. It's EFTPS, Electronic Federal Tax Payment System. And if you're an employer, you get set up with that, and that's what you use to transfer your taxes electronically to the IRS. And honestly, I mean, there's this exception if you have 2,500 or less, but really, why wouldn't you just get set up to transfer them? You really want to like fill out a coupon and write a check and find an envelope and a stamp, right? Then in the old days, you had to go through federal depository banks and wait in line and get it stamped. And then you take it home and make a bunch of copies and punch holes in it and put it in binders. How old do I sound? Okay. And we know these due dates, I just gave them to you, right? They're the exact same dates as when a 941's due. Okay. Oh goodness, this all says the same thing over and over. You just have a voucher called a 940V, and you use that if you're doing a check and include it with the 940. Otherwise, you file everything electronically. I'm not going to talk about SUTA deposit and reporting because we're going to go into that in a lot of detail when we get to the Montana section. Okay, so should we go through the homework now? Want to do that? Okay. If you don't mind, does everybody have their book? I'm going to just have you guys go through. Let me go ahead and open up these solutions. Just tell me which one it is and then read it and tell me what you did. Okay, who's ready to go? Thanks, man.
Number 4 for review questions.
Yep.
Under the interstate reciprocal coverage arrangement, the services of a worker can be covered in the state of election of the employer as long as one of these 3 factors exist. What are those 3 conditions? And
That's a mouthful. What's an interstate reciprocal coverage agreement? Any idea? Somebody help her out that was here on Monday?
A bunch of different states, whatever, they got to figure out where they're going to actually call the state.
Pay to, yeah. So it's when you're an employer and you've got employees. I gave an example of like, say you work on the Bakken and you've got employees that are working on oil fields on Montana side and North Dakota side. Where do I pay my SUTA payments to as the employer? And you have to look at a series of things. Where's the work localized? Where does the management team operate out of? Et cetera, et cetera. And if you can't figure it out using all these different categories of trying to understand it, then the two states can form an interstate reciprocal coverage agreement, which says, I pay all of my SUTA to North Dakota, and even when a Montana guy or gal gets let go, they can collect off of North Dakota. So it just makes it less complicated. So how do they decide what has to be in existence?
I said like where the place, like where it's localized.
Yep.
Okay. And then location of base operations, location of place from which operations are directed or controlled, or location of employee,
Okay, so what you just listed off, Maddie, is the 4 things that you hope to look at to decide before you even have to go to this.
Okay.
So those things you just listed off, if I'm an employer, I hope to look at those 4 items and make a decision where to pay my SUTA. If I look at all that and I still can't make a decision, then I go formulate an interstate reciprocal coverage agreement. But I can only do that if A, the employee actually worked in North Dakota, B, the employee lived in North Dakota, or C, I have a place of business in that state. In other words, I can't be like, I want to pay SUTA to Alabama because they've got nice low rates, right? It's got to make sense. Okay. Tyler.
Yeah, so for number 5, it asks, to what extent does FUTA coverage extend to services that a citizen of the U.S. performs for an American employer outside of the U.S.? And then I got that FUTA coverage fully extends if you're working for an American employer unless the service is performed in Canada or another U.S. or foreign country.
Yeah, so basically it's like if I'm working for Delta Airlines and I'm temporarily stationed in Paris, they need to pay food on me. They need to pay SUTA on me. They need to pay workers' comp on me. They need to do everything on me unless it's Canada or Mexico. Okay. Gabby? What's the next one? Okay. I think that's 6. Are those taxable? I don't think so. Nominal value means something so small it's not worth tracking. Okay, so those aren't taxable. Okay, you work for me at Rock and Rudy's and I give you 20% off anything in the store. No, you're not taxed on that.
Reimbursement of ordinary and necessary business expenses.
Not taxed on that, but only if I have what kind of plan? An accountable plan, right? That says I'm compliant with the Internal Revenue Code.
Dismissal payments.
Yeah, that's like severance pay. Thank you very much. I don't have a position anymore. Here's $2,000. That's taxable. Okay, David.
What is an employer required to do in order to obtain a maximum credit of 5.4% against the FUTA tax? Make state contribution on before due date for filing annual return.
Yeah, so obviously we know there's 2 exceptions. You just listed one of them. I don't know why they didn't list the other. To get the full 5.4, you have to have made your SUTA payments on time and what? Not
paid more, not taken more than you paid into it.
to get so that 6.0 minus 5.4 equals 0.6. To get the full 5.4% credit, you have to have paid all your SUTA on time and not be located in a state that's in Title 12 default. Okay? All right, Laurel.
Number 8, an employee who has a payroll experience rating is permitted to pay a state contribution
2.1%, that's simple math. Aggregate just means total. 1.5 plus 0.6. All right, James, which one are we on? Thank you. Yeah, I ran out of money. I'm Nevada, and I've got 200,000 people that need a check next week that they're living on. I don't have it. You borrow it from the feds. It's called Title 12. Okay, Stephen. Are we on 11?
In 2018, which state had the widest range of SUTA tax rates for employers? I put Arkansas.
Yeah.
4%.
And that's just reading the table, right?
Yeah.
And then what was the second question?
Which state paid the highest weekly maximum benefit, excluding dependency allowances to qualified unemployed workers? And I put Massachusetts with 769 max per week.
Okay, that's a little different, but you must have been using a more updated table. And then the last one's what?
See which state had the highest taxable wage base for the SUTA tax, and I put Washington.
Yep. And I will tell you, these things just, 0.4 to 14.3, wow, that's a pretty wide spread, isn't it? Okay, Maddie, back to you again.
Number 13 says, for an employer who is subject to SUTA, what is the basic form that must be filed with the federal government? And that one is your 940 business?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then when must this form be filed? By January 31st?
Yes, ma'am.
Our taxable wages can be computed on annual return.
That's basically just everything other than those two screens of specifically exempt payments. I'm a partner, I'm on the board of directors, I'm an independent contractor, those kinds of things. Okay. Is that it for the discussion or the reviews? Okay, okay. But, yes, please.
Okay. So this one I actually had no idea how to do.
Which one was this?
We had to do 2, 7, 8, and then I didn't know if you wanted us to do 16.
I didn't. I'm sorry, so are we on the problems now, or there were no discussions? Oh, thank you, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so number 2 was paid company's payroll for the year is $737,910. Of this amount, $472,120 is for wages paid in excess of $7,000 to each individual employee. The SUTA rate in Bates Company's state is 2.9%. The first $7,000 of each employee's earnings computes the FUTA, SUTA, and the total taxes.
Okay, so first off, they give you this big number, 797,000, then they say X amount of that is in excess of 7,000. So what do you have to do? Let's subtract it. So that's the amount everybody made over $7,000 per person per year. So easy peasy. The one thing I really want to point out here, and I hate that I don't know why they use this example over and over. Some states actually have a $7,000 wage base for SUTA, but that's not the norm. You have to look it up for every single state. So in this example, it's pretty easy, but that's not really usually how it works. Did you catch up?
No, not really. And I'm super confused, like where the .048 comes from. I don't understand.
What's .048?
The obvious solution to this, you did 123 times .048 for this. Where's that percentage? Oh.
I'm sorry. So I'm looking at number 2.
Sorry. You have another one above.
Oh, yeah, okay. I like,
I was looking at the other one too, and I was.
sorry, yeah, no. So here was the total wages paid. Yeah, let's look at the one that you actually did. Here's the total wages paid minus everything paid over $7,000. So the first 265,790 was taxable for both FUTA and SUTA. But in most states, or a whole bunch of states, your pseudo wage base is going to be different, so you would have had to have gotten two amounts to subtract. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead.
One more question.
Sure.
So is the FUTA tax always going to be just 0.006
Unless
unless the exceptions?
unless one of those two exceptions, and I would have to tell you that.
Okay. Okay, that actually.
Good. Okay. Gabby,
So I didn't like the,
what did you say the next one was, Tyler?
It's 278.
Thanks.
so I didn't like the exact amount, I was really answers.
Okay,
For the SUDA, I put $18.90.
okay,
And then the SUDA, I got $235.
okay.
And then 42%.
Is this the person that moved states?
Yeah.
Transferred.
Transferred. Okay, so can you read me in the book what it says?
Yeah, number 8,
7.
7. April of the current year, Freeman Steel Company transferred her quarter from its factory in Nebraska to its plant in Michigan. Company's SUDA tax rate based on its experience ratings are 3.2% in Nebraska, 3.8% in Michigan. Both states paid for tax on the first $9,000 of each employee's earnings. This year, Freeman Steel paid her wages of $2,900, and $2,800 were paid in Nebraska, and the remainder in Michigan.
Okay, I think I gave you guys that information on Monday. Didn't I tell you that the SUDA started over?
I thought, yeah,
Yeah,
you did.
well,
That's why I was wondering about number 8. You said that it started over, but this one,
Number 7.
was last year to cap, like, I wanted to see it.
Okay, so can you find the reference in the book? Is it pretty clear that if you transfer with one company that your wages from the first state apply to the second?
It's the example I tell you. in the book.
Okay.
That's why I figured it out.
Okay, so my bad. This doesn't actually make sense to me because what if you transferred from a state that had a higher cap to a lower cap? I mean, I see all sort of mathematical issues, but obviously we're going to do it the way that the book indicates, which is if he worked for two different companies, would that $2,800 have applied to the new state? No.
That's the next question.
But if he is it?
Yeah.
But if he transfers, it does. Maybe I did I say it like that on Monday? Okay. So does everybody understand what happened here? So in the second state, you got to take out the $2,800 that he had earned in the first state towards his cap. And then on 5-8, Laurel, what's going on there?
So, Jeff worked with 2 different employers. So, until May, he worked for a company in Iowa and earned $22,000. And that state rate is 1.6. Then he changed jobs and went to Kansas and earned $29,500 for the rest of the year. The rate for that state was 5.1%.
Okay.
So, yeah, he had 2 different jobs.
2 different jobs, so just paying full tax in each state. Okay, let's spend the last 10 minutes starting on the 940. And then I think what we'll do in class on Friday is we'll finish what I'm starting today. We'll do another practice one together, and then we'll do the one for the homework for chapter 5 together. So it'll be kind of a reinforcement day. Well, we'll for sure get through 2 940s, and then I'll think about that last piece that I just said. Okay, so if you're listening, please go pull up, make sure that you're on the Banner Drug link, and then make sure that you've got your 940 sitting in front of you. And we're going to take a look at how you translate this to the 940. So really, in order to do this, let's see if I can find the 940 pretty quick. You've got to come up with a couple items. One of the items is the gross wages for all year. The second thing you need to come up with is all wages paid your employees in excess of $7,000. So again, if I paid out 200 grand in wages and 120 of that was over 7,000 per person per year, $80,000 is my FUTA wage base. So let's start by filling in based upon what's on your screen, right on your Excel spreadsheet. Let's go ahead and fill in the top of the 940, please. Okay, none of these are true. It's not amended or final. I didn't give you an address, did I? Okay, so we've got the top filled out. Part 1. Tell us about your return. If any line does not apply, leave it blank. Do you have any indication that they had to pay state unemployment tax in only one state or more than one state? Do you know that? No, you really don't know that. But I would have to tell you that, wouldn't I? So let's just say they're in Montana. And then you see the two things that we were just talking about earlier. You're going to have to fill out a Schedule A if they're multi-state or if they paid wages in a state that's subject to a credit reduction. Do you have any indication either of those things are true? No. What we really, the whole part that we are going to now set up a little spreadsheet or worksheet to do is all to fill out Part 2. Line 3 really means what's your total compensation all year. Line 5 is what was the amount you paid them in excess of $7,000, and line 7's the difference, and then you calculate your tax. So let's go figure out how much I paid everybody all year. So to do that, you can either do it on a piece of paper, turn it sideways, landscape, or if you're pretty proficient in Excel, go ahead and do it in Excel. I would just turn a piece of paper landscape, and then you're going to fill in the names of the employees down the left, and quarters 1, 2, 3, 4 in total across the top. And then I'll show you how to fill it in. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is figure out how much gross wages they earned per quarter. And this isn't particularly realistic because they had overtime, and obviously that's going to be different. But based on this, and you've looked at this before, how am I converting their pay here to quarterly wages? How often does this payroll register run? Weekly. How many weeks are in a quarter? It depends. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, weekly is 13 a quarter. Right? Payrolls run 13 times in every 3-month period. You're probably 13 weeks in a quarter.
I'm just trying to catch up mentally.
Okay. It's so fun, not funny, haha, but when you sat in a classroom as many years as I have, you can just totally see where everybody's at. I checked out. I'm thinking about my date last night. I don't know what the hell she's talking about. I wish it was lunchtime. I mean,
Well,
it's just
I got like
hilarious.
5 things I'm thinking about. I'm still wondering why.
So this is a weekly payroll register. We're trying to translate that into how much they made each quarter.
Could you annualize it and then divide it by?
Yes. Yes. But, yes, you could. So what I want you to do is figure out how much they made each quarter. It's gonna be the same. That's not an accurate assumption, but we're just doing that for academic purposes. And then total, how much each person made all year. Okay? And you can either be doing this just on a piece of paper, or you can open up Excel and do it. That's really as far as we're going to get today. So let me just put the instructions down here that I'd like you to have done by Friday. Okay, so for what did you do to get Creek's first quarter wages? What times what? Okay, are we gonna, well, it would in this case if we didn't have the OT, but it's always gross pay. And then there would be things like his bonuses and his commissions and his severance pay, and, right, but this is just easy peasy. Do you have any reason to believe that he changed wages between quarters? No. Now let me leave you with this. And just give it a try, do your very best. Sorry? All the quarters. I want you to add a couple things under here. This is the summary section. Total gross. Total food wages. This is where you're going to get all the information. When you complete this for everybody, how are you going to get total gross? Yeah. What happens to Creek in the second quarter as pertains to FUTA wages? He doesn't cap in the second quarter? He does cap. In the second quarter, he goes over $7,000. How much of Creek's wages are you going to have to pay FUTA on in the second quarter? Can you do that calculation? So everybody think about that. In the second quarter, it's evident that Creek is going to go over $7,000, right? So how much of his second quarter wages are susceptible to FUTA? $409, the amount up to $7,000. So stick with me here, because I'm going to see if you guys can finish this chart. And I'm just totally making up numbers now, okay? Just for illustration purposes. If this is what it ended up being, the total gross is obviously these four numbers. If nobody's capped, how much is taxable for FUTA if nobody's capped? Same number. In the second quarter, if these numbers are all the same, who's going to cap? Everybody. What amount is going to go in total FUTA wages then? The amount that brings each of them up to $7,000. So for Crete, it's $409. For Crowley, it's $1,000, right? And then your liability is just times 0.006. And you know the deposit rules. Just see if you can finish this chart for Friday. Okay? All right. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Hope you heard that, Michaela.